Muted. Guys, we are live right now.
Hey!
We are live.
Hey.
Excellent. Thank you,
Hey.
Ian. So everyone say thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
I was breaking things and fixing things all at one time.
What a legend, mate. What a legend.
Legend.
Excellent. So I think if you go and check all your channels, we should be live. I'm definitely live right now. What a legend, mate. What a legend.
We did it.
Excellent. Who's got it on their phone or something? Can you hear a bit of delay?
That might have been me, but I have sorted the problem.
Fantastic.
In fact, all
welcome
is
to-
well.
Welcome to Higher Sessions, everybody. Number 6.
Hi,
Welcome.
Mark.
Crazy. Hello, Gina. Hello, Ben. Hello, Joe. Hello, Mark. Hello, Mark. Hello, Mark. Before we get started, I'd just like to ask you, what's your favourite cereal? Quick fire.
Favorite cereal?
Favourite cereal. Joe,
Cereal,
what's your favourite cereal?
Cocoa Pops. I don't know. No, Fruit Fiber. Fruit Fiber. That's it.
Fruit and fibre. You're so old. You're definitely old. Gina.
Cookie Crisp.
Cookie Crisp. Strong. Benjamino.
My favorite cereal is porridge with peanut butter and golden syrup.
Okay, it started poor
Cereal
and it got
goals.
a lot better. I'm a Wheatos man through and through. Wheatos 100%. It's just chocolatey goodness.
I used to
Chocolatey,
take a
chocolatey
little
goodness.
plastic bag of dried Wheatos to school every day.
Really?
Yep,
Wow.
no milk. Don't need that milk.
There you go.
Dried
Fantastic.
shredded wheat. That was a
Um,
time.
What'd you say?
I said I used to eat dried shredded wheat. That was a hard time in my life.
Well, welcome everybody. Lovely to have you all with us. We are today going to be looking at adventure.
Yeah.
Adventure. Woo!
Adventure.
So we've done 5 others before. So this is number 6. This is going to be the last one, but there's going to be bonus Wednesday night adventures all happening from next week. So keep your eyes peeled on all the social medias for a little more of that. But we are going to talk a little bit about adventure and what on earth that means with relation to the Christian faith. We have looked at a lot of different stuff, lots and lots of different aspects of the Christian faith. And today we are looking at adventure. So Gina, I was wondering if you could maybe tell us, I'm putting you in the hot spot right now, but I wonder if you could maybe tell us a way that your faith has been an adventure. Is there anything that's kind of been like, this part of my faith has been an adventure?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think for me, it's just how I've ended up here. Like, I look at the stuff that's happened in my life and, like, definitely wasn't me. I feel like my whole life, God's just been putting things in place and, like, really looking after me to get me here where I am today. I remember auditioning. So for you guys that don't know, I did a music degree, which I highly recommend. It's great. But I auditioned for like my dream university. I dreamt about going to the Royal Northern College of Music. And I auditioned and absolutely fluffed it like it was rubbish. I didn't get in. I didn't even get a second audition. And I remember going back home and being like, what the heck? Like, why has this happened? Like, I really thought that I was going to go here. So that all ended. Long story short, I ended up going to a university in Leeds instead, still to study music, but I was at Leeds College of Music. Turns out that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I really got plugged into church in Leeds, which obviously is incredible. But I also met one of my closest friends, a lady called Joy. Joy then told me about Message Academy, which I then was going to apply for. And a long story short, I didn't end up doing Academy because I actually auditioned for the OTC role, which I now have. And here I am. So if I'd have never have gone to Leeds, I wouldn't have met Joy. And if I'd have never met Joy, I never would have heard about the Message. It's crazy. Like, talk about adventure.
Yeah.
And then one of the best things as well was, like, when I was at Leeds in my final year studying, there'll be so many people from the Message just like dotted around everywhere in my life. Like, there's a guy called Danny Coates. Shout out Danny if you're watching. He just happened to be at my university on the day of my final exam. And he's a guy that's also involved with the Message and like knows people at the Message. He happened to be in the university in my final exam, which was a big performance. And he was like, well, sick, I'll come along and watch you then. So he came and watched me sing and watched me perform. He then gets in, like, gives people at the Message a heads up about me, all this kind of stuff. And like, he gave me loads of advice on like how to maybe potentially audition to be an OTC and all this kind of stuff. So it was so cool just to meet loads of people along the way that were
That's
like
awesome.
connected to the Message and like, yeah, just how God was putting things in place. It's so cool.
That's awesome. I love that. And that's the thing about this stuff, isn't it? Is it's like it's stuff that we could never orchestrate ourselves. Like it's stuff that can only happen because of something else being in control for us. That's definitely God. And like all those little things that happened, if they hadn't happened, who knows where you would have been. But it goes to show like the plan that God has. And so like it's an adventure that feels risky, but actually it's not. Like it is in some sense, but also it's not, because we know that God has a plan for our lives, that there's a mapped out course, that this adventure isn't us just blindly walking somewhere, but actually it's being led by someone who can see the biggest picture there is.
Yeah, I think as well, like sometimes when you're like midway on that journey, you can't see the finish line. You can't see where you're going or where God's taking you. And you're like, what's happening? You can sometimes get a bit confused. Like it's like when you're on a hike in the mountains or something, like you can't necessarily see where you're going if it's foggy or something. But like God's got it. There's always, and when you look back as well on your trail or what God's done in your life, I found for me as well, like, wow, actually he's done a lot. He was working in that time when I was confused, when I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So there's always stuff going on. He could be doing like 1,000 things when it only feels like he's doing 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To,
so you get that whole picture.
Oh, sorry, Mark. To jump on what Ben was saying there as well, I remember the first time I'd ever heard about the message was, like I just said, when my friend Joy told me about it. But Joy only told me about this Message Academy year because I was really hating my first year of university at that time. I was like, I don't know why I'm here. Like, it's not what I thought it was going to be. I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. And then Joy was like, oh, well, maybe you could do the message. So it's so true what Ben was saying. Like, it's so... you can be in the middle of it and not see what God's doing and not see the finish or not see where this is ever going to like lead you or where you're going to end up. But God is so in control and he loves us so much. It's the safest thing you could do is just trust him.
Yeah, exactly. And then there is that element of risk that comes with it as well, isn't there? Like it's not just plain sailing, but there is stuff that is going to push us outside of our comfort zone. But it's learning to trust that there's a good God behind that, isn't there? And it's not going to as far as to say this thing is easy, because it is an adventure, it is a journey, but at the same time, it's learning to trust during the hardships, when things are complicated, when things are difficult, when our life doesn't make sense. Actually, there's a guy I once met. So there's a whole big story, a bit of a tangent, but it's fine. So I was coming home from work, and I get the bus home, and I remember being really excited to chuck my headphones on and listen to music. And I really felt like God was saying, don't listen to your music, just listen to me. And I was like, oh, all right, fine. I was really gutted because this is going to be a sick album. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, I'm going to listen to music.
Brightline.
It was Brightline.
It was
Out now. Wasn't Brightline. And so, and I was, but I got on the bus. I was kind of like, okay, cool. Like, why am I listening to the world? Why am I listening to you right now, rather than my sweet jams? And I remember God really again poked me again and was kind of like, you need to get off the bus one stop early. And I was like, okay, that's walking, but fine. That's like effort. Again, my plan was headphones on, bus to almost my doorstep, get out, chill out, sorted. But God said, get off the bus one step early. And so I did. And I came to this bridge, and I really felt like God was saying I needed to talk to somebody about Jesus. I needed to tell someone that their mistakes from the past have been forgiven, and that it doesn't define them, but actually that they are loved, right? Something that we can all use hearing every now and then, right? And walking under this bridge, and it was kind of sketchy because there was this guy coming towards me, and I was like I was a bit nervous because I was under a bridge and I was out of sight, and there was a guy walking to me. I was like, oh no, what's going to happen? And God said, that's the guy, go talk to him. And I was like, well, I did. So I went out to him, and there was a long, God knew me, so there was a long walkway in between where I could convince I'm gonna do it. Hello. And so I was like, hey man, this is super weird, but I'm a Christian and I believe that God spoke to me and he said that you have been forgiven and that your past mistakes don't define you, but you are loved and you get a fresh start. And he was like, what did you just say? And I was like, so I said it kind of again, and I was really worried he was going to hit me or something. And he was like, mate, that's crazy. I was literally in my head just praying. I think I was like, I need something to change in my life. And I was like, okay, this starts to make more sense. And I was like, do you mind telling me a bit about your life? Like, why were you praying? What needs to change? Turns out this guy was homeless, and he was homeless because of a gambling addiction. and he'd been kicked out of his house where he had 2 daughters, and he hadn't seen them, and he'd been diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer, and he didn't have long to live, and he wanted to reconcile with his girls, but he didn't know how to because he was like, I'm just a mess. And I got to be a tiny part of the day, right, for him, this small moment of just being like, hey, you're loved. But actually because there was this adventure behind me, because there was this exciting, very real and conversational God talking to me and saying, don't listen to music, be aware of the world. Don't get off where you want to get off just one stop early. I never met this guy again, but I was able to pray with him under the bridge, and I don't know what happened, but this was a few years ago, so if what he told me was true, then the chances are he's not around anymore, and that's pretty scary. But I was able to, in that moment, impact him with nothing that I had. I brought nothing. What I brought was fear and annoyance, because I was annoyed I couldn't listen to my music, and I was scared of the guy under the bridge. But because God was like, go do this stuff, I was backed up by this God that we can trust. We can put our trust in and say, hey, you know what, like, let's live an adventure. I never ever would have done that. I wouldn't have been able to speak to you guys about it. I wouldn't have been able to speak to him, more importantly, if I hadn't been living an adventure with Jesus. And this is the thing, is that it is an adventure, and it's not some cozy thing where it's like you're cuddled and all the things you've done wrong suddenly don't matter anymore. Like, it's not about that. It's about living our life brand new, completely fresh, saying, you know what, those things before don't define me, but I'm going to use those as a platform to be reinvented by Jesus, and I can go out in his power, not in my own anymore. Because that's the thing, when we screw up, when we do bad things, we're acting in our own strength, we're acting in our own weakness. And then Jesus reinvents us, gives us a new life, and says, go out, have an adventure, and do stuff with him. And this thing is exactly the same as what you're saying, Gina. It's terms of like, none of us would ever be here right now, live on Zoom and YouTube, and, in bands and doing music, and now doing all this YouTube stuff, like this really awesome YouTube stuff, if it hadn't been for us saying, you know what, God, I'm in. I want to be a part of the adventure. I want to be part of the story that you've got for me. Like, it's kind of mad.
And what I love about that story, Mark, is that I think so often people see God as this guy in the clouds somewhere who's kind of like, you pray to, you have to like do little things to make him happy. But it's a relationship, and the fact that God spoke to you and like you were scared. It wasn't like it was really clear, like God was like, Mark, you must do this. Do you know what I mean? It was like a nudging, yet God came through and he didn't leave you on your own. Like you took a step of faith, and you were like, you weren't even sure if that guy was the guy, but like God used you. And it was that kind of thing of you being willing to be used by God, isn't it? It's that kind of like, you know what, God, I want you to use me. It's scary and it's a risk, but like I want to put my faith in you to use me in crazy ways.
Exactly. And like we can all say crazy things we've done because of just this part of our lives, this element of the adventure, this element of our life, of God calling us to crazy things. And it says in the Bible, is a great part that often used by older people because they want to hold on to that, but it's like the best is yet to come. It's like, we don't just need to look backwards and reminisce about the good things, but actually we know with an adventure with God, there's no limit to what he can do. There's no limit to what he can do. Hear crazy stories of faithful people who get to live exciting lives because they, like you're saying, Joe, they put their trust, put their faith. And it is that risk. It is that risk of saying, you know what, I want, like, I'm cozy right now. Like, I've got my life sorted. Like, I'm happy with my friendship group. I'm happy with the way I'm living my life. But there's a risk to stand out and be something different because this isn't normal. What we do isn't normal, but that's okay. Like, it's like, they might think I'm going crazy, but it's all right. Like, I think your love has changed me, but it's all right. Bright Line song. Like, that's part of it, right? It's like, people might think it's strange. People might think that's weird, but that's okay. It's completely fine because Jesus is bigger than that. Jesus is better than all of that. And if we put our trust and faith in him, it's just so exciting. So exciting. My next question, though. So that was kind of like my stories there is a little bit about like how sharing our faith and how investing in this adventure can have an impact on other people. So, Ben, no, I'm going to ask this one to Joe. Joe, can you tell us a little bit why should we, I guess, one, share our faith, but why should we take that risk at all? What are the reasons behind it?
Yeah, I hear you, because it's like one of those things. It's like, I've got this, like my life's been changed sort of thing, but why would I want to tell other people? And I think the big thing for me is I always try and see it as like a piece of good news. Like we've been given this amazing piece of good news. And so when you've got a piece of good news, you want to tell people, right? You want to tell as many people as you can. Like if you get a good like exam grade, like last week you got your A-level results or you're getting your GCSE results soon, like you get a good grade, you want to tell people about it. Like you want to share that good news with people, as many people as you can. And I think that's the same way with what Jesus has done in our lives. He's done something amazing. He's changed our lives. And so I want to tell as many people as I can about what he's done in my life. And there's a bit in the Bible, Matthew 28. So Matthew's like the first book of the New Testament. And towards the end of that book, Jesus, he's died, he's come back to life, and he's chatting to the disciples. And he says to them, look, now it's your turn. You need to go out into the world and tell as many people as you can about me. That they will hear that piece of good news too. And it's this whole idea of like, we are disciples, we are followers of Jesus. And so we will go out, tell other people about Jesus so they become disciples and then go on and tell more and more people about Jesus. You could kind of see it, maybe like a viral video, right? Like a video goes viral, it gets shared over and over and over again. And the people who are just sharing it because they found something that they're enjoying or something that's changed them or something that they found inspiring. And so, like I said, for us, it's like Jesus has commanded us to go into the world, tell people about him. And from there on, like, I think like we can see a world change. And I love the bit at the end of that passage, Matthew 28, where it says, we were chatting about it a second ago, that I am with you always to the very age, is what it says at that last little bit. Jesus says that to the disciples. And again, it's that whole thing of like, we take a step out, we take risks, go and tell our friends about our faith, which is scary sometimes, but God will never leave us. Jesus will never leave us. He's right there beside us through it all. And I think that's such a comforting thing when we're in those scary kind of taking a risk moments, that God is there. He is with us.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome, man. I just want to take this moment, just if anyone's got any questions on YouTube, chuck them in the comments, and we'd love to get to answer any of those. Just interject there. But yeah, if there's anything anyone wants to ask us about adventure, about any things we've talked before, about anything else, just drop them in the comments. But Joe, yeah, man, I think you've nailed that. I think you smashed that. It is totally like, there's such, again, it's this similar element when it comes to adventure of like this absolute risk. You know, you think of it like an actual adventure, you know, going through a jungle that's never been mapped before or something like that, right? There is such a risk there. But actually, if you're going through that jungle with the biggest, baddest boy in town, like, you know, you're going through with this tough nut guy, you're not going to feel that fear, because if he's holding your hand, you're not going to feel so afraid. And it's the same thing with Christianity, isn't it? It's that there's a beautiful line, I love it, in the David and Goliath story, when David is faced with this literal giant, and he's like, I'm gonna eat your liver. I don't know what he says. And then and then David's like, well, you know, you come at me with your swords and your armor and all your big guns and whatnot, but I come at you with the God of angel armies. And it's like that right there, that is a mindset. Whatever you're facing ahead of you, whether it be that you know, bullying, be that mental health problems, be that issues at home, be that insecurities, unhappiness, you know, anything, we come at this not with fancy armor, not with, you know, our quick minds or whatever, but we come at it with the God of angel armies on our side. And whether that's sharing our faith, whether that's just living our life, that's the guy who's in front of us, the beefcake ahead of us, who's like, you got to come through me first. Like, that's the guy. And I think that's so precious. And it almost, when you start to fix your eyes on that, it starts to take away that fear of just talking about stuff, right? And I think, I guess we have the opportunity to speak a lot on stage, you know, like with our music stuff, or on camera with the YouTube stuff. We get a lot of opportunities. But Benny boy, haven't asked you a question yet.
Yeah.
How else can people who maybe aren't in the same position as us, how else can we be sharing our faith? What other types of like investing in this adventure would you say?
Yeah, it takes lots of different forms, doesn't it, being an evangelist? It's not just one specific form, and it doesn't look like a certain way. It's not like this weird thing of like, oh, we all look the same. I think like everyone has different hobbies, everyone has different talents, and that's what's beautiful about it, because we're all musicians. We love writing music, we love writing explicit lyrics, and when we write songs as bands and as individuals, like we're writing about God, we're writing about Jesus, we're writing about the gospel. And that is like one of the main ways that we as musicians, as Christians, are sharing the gospel. But what's beautiful is I've got a few friends. Like one of my friends, he's a footballer, and he shares the gospel through football. So he'll get groups of young people, and they'll come to his youth group, and then they'll play like a certain game and like a certain challenge with football, and then through that he'll teach them like a certain part of the Bible, and he will like preach the gospel to them in that way. So that's like through actions, and it's through football, which is beautiful, because like before I knew this guy, I never would have thought, wow, you can share the gospel through football. And I've got another friend, he shares the gospel through art. So he's an artist, he paints pictures. So like, especially in like church kind of context or conferences or like youth groups. So he'll paint a picture whilst like worship is happening or something, or while someone's playing a song, or he'll do something like that. And then he'll give the picture to someone, and that's kind of like what we call as Christians prophetic, or like it'll be a prophetic picture, which is beautiful. I think that's a really beautiful way to share the gospel. And I've got another friend who bakes cookies, and then she puts Bible scriptures on them. I think that's really cool. Like, and she gives them out to people. Like, what's really beautiful is we all have our own talents. We all have our own things that we do, and that's what's adventurous about it. We're not all just one. Like, do you know what I mean? We're not just we don't look one way. That it takes different forms. And that's what's really beautiful about it for me. So yeah, there's lots of different ways to share the gospel. It takes lots of different forms.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, you know, we have the privilege of being able to do it, you know, how we do, you know, with music and with YouTube and by being the personalities that we are. Like, we have those opportunities. But like you're saying, it takes any kind of form, and wherever you are at now, miscellaneous viewer, whatever you are up to, whatever your skills and gifts are, I can bet that God wants to use them for the good of those people around you. And whether that is, you know, you've got a small group of friends at school, be the most loving one of those friends. You know, like what is it about you? You know, there's maybe you live on a street with lots of other houses on. Like, how can you be a confident and a loud voice to those people telling them that they're loved, telling them that there's something different about how they can live their life? And I think, again, like you're saying, Ben, that's part of the adventure, isn't it? It's figuring out where we sit, where we fit in that. Yeah. I think before I came up to Manchester, before I started this job, I had no idea how to talk about my faith. I had absolutely no idea. And when I had the opportunity, I was really scared. I just didn't want to engage with that. I was like, oh, they're going to think I'm weird. They're going to slap me. They're going to come at me with like intellectual arguments that means I'm going to look a bit dumb. And I was just so scared. But actually, like, this is exactly what it is. It's part of the adventure. It's figuring out what it is. And you know what? Every time I've stepped out, I don't think I've ever been cussed out, or I've ever been pushed away, or I've ever been, you know, I've had no's and been rejected and pushed away or whatever, but never in a way that's been like horrible, or never in a way that's been scary. And I think it's one of those things that we kind of just, you figure out along the way, and you kind of learn that actually it gets easier. It gets easier with practice. And it's just jumping in. It's jumping in with 2 feet and figuring out how do we do it. But analysing your own strengths, and that's a really key point there, Ben. It is. Analysing your own stuff.
Just in case anyone's watching and they're like, well, I don't play football, I don't do art, I don't do music, I'm not creative. I just really want to encourage you, like, just be you. Be who you're made to be. Don't try and like do something that, you know, that, I don't know, don't try and do one of those things. Don't try and be someone you're not. Like, just do you. And that might be as simple as, you know what, going out on the street and telling someone that God loves them. Like, it could literally be that simple. That is sharing the gospel. That is sharing God's love. So yeah, you don't necessarily have to be like, what are you saying, Joe?
I was saying, it might just be seeing like a homeless person, and like, instead of just walking past them, like going into a shop and buying them lunch. Do you know what I mean? It can be simple ways, and just be like, you know what, I'm giving because God loves you. Do you know what I mean? It can be really, really simple everyday stuff. It might even be like you're trying to figure out how to tell your family about Jesus, and it might be that you notice that your mum needs a job doing, like there's the hoovering that needs doing, and before she asks you to do it, or she's struggling to do it, you just go and do it yourself. It's like those little everyday little acts. Yeah. Like, your parents might be like, why? Like, that's different. Why are you doing that? I've noticed a change in your behavior, and it's that moment where you could be like, you know what, God's changed me. Like, and it's simple things, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I put you all on the spot right now, and I'm going to ask you, what would be one bit of advice you would give to someone who is looking in on this and doesn't quite know yet how to get in on the adventure? So for me, my advice would be try it out. You've got nothing to lose, because you can look in on Christianity, you look in on living a life with faith, you can look in on living a life that's more adventurous, that's pushing yourself. You can look in on it forever, and you can be on the outside of it forever. But as soon as you jump in, your life is different. Your life will change for the better, because it's a life where you are holding the hand of God, the creator, the perfect, awesome, powerful, loving, kind, compassionate God. You are holding his hand all that much tighter, and you're depending on him for more. And that's more and more beautiful. So that's what that would be my bit of advice, would be, you've got nothing to lose.
I'd agree with that. It's quite similar to yours, Mark, but I would just give prayer a go as well. Like, that might be a way that you can do Mark's point, that you can do, like, just jumping in and try it out. Because when I wasn't a Christian, like, I tried praying, and like the things I was praying for, suddenly there was answers to the prayers, and I was like, whoa, okay. And it really started to get me thinking. And so what I would encourage anyone watching this, like, oh, I'm not sure, the bit of advice I will give you is just try praying. And like, you don't have to get on your knees, you don't have to put your hands together. You can literally just like be walking down the street, or you could be on the toilet, or you could be eating your lunch, and you literally could just say, yeah, God, are you real? Can you show yourself to me? Like, that's what I would encourage you to do.
That's cool.
I would go, Gina.
Oh, thanks, Joe. I think for me, get friends around you, get Christian friends around you that are like excited about the same stuff. Like, I love it when me and some of my closest friends will be like, oh my gosh, like, so for example, there's been so many opportunities when I've just been with my group of mates in McDonald's, and we've managed to like sort a situation out that might have been kicking off, or we've managed to have a useful conversation, but we've been there as a group. Like, you don't have to like go. And obviously, like Mark was saying, like, God is right beside us. Like, Jesus is with us every step of the way. But also, he's given us each other. Like, you don't have to go fighting it alone. Like, get friends around you, get people around you that are like excited about the same stuff, and like also want to share like the incredible message of love and hope. And yeah, that'd be my bit of advice.
Amazing. Joe?
Yeah, I think if you're just kind of looking at this God stuff and you're not sure if it's kind of for you or not, I think the thing I would say is that I think a lot of people their whole lives try and find purpose, right? We're trying to find meaning to this life in loads of different ways, whether that's through like careers, money, school, I don't know. But I think ultimately the only way you can find true purpose in this life is through Jesus, and by putting your faith and your trust in him. And like, we believe that God like created us, that he created everything that we see. And it's kind of like that thing, if like God knows us, that he sees us, that he loves us. And by getting to know the creator, the one who created everything, and it's at that point that we get to understand why we were created in the first place. And I just really encourage you that, there is a God who's got a purpose in your life, bigger than what you see right in front of you. He's got an amazing adventure that is scary, that is not always easy, but best thing that you can do with your life.
Amazing. Thanks everyone. Is anyone? I don't think so. Has anyone got any questions in the chat or anything like that? We just need to quickly go through. I don't think so, but no, I didn't think so. Cool. Well, in that case, I believe it's signing off time. If you've been one of the OGs and been here since session 1, then you are officially our favorite person in the world. Yeah. But if not, thank you for joining us anyway. And we'll be back next week with a whole other bunch of people discussing some more practical ways to share your faith. So make sure you come back for that. I know I will be. So yeah, thanks so much everyone for joining us. Bye from Amongst Wolves.
Bye from Brightline.
Goodbye from OTC.
Bye.
Later.
From Soulboss.
Yes.